Greetings everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm your host Captain Rye, and today's video is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. Specifically, in today's video, I have a type of gameplay that you never see on my channel. Partly because I view all people who play carriers as scum of the earth, and partly because, well, it's SkyCancer. But today we have one such scummy person playing a carrier for us, doing terrible things to the enemy team. Today's replay comes to us from Lloyd JT, and he is playing in the Tier 10 US SkyCancer USS Midway. As the battle gets underway, it's mountain range, it's domination match mode, and Lloyd has spawned just above the A cap point. This is a pretty normal spawn location for the carrier on this map, for carriers that spawn on the north side. Now, I believe if you're on the south end, you spawned normally closer to the B cap point. So what Lloyd's going to do here is he's going to take his ship, and first thing he's going to do is start sailing. Specifically, he's going to start sailing away from the enemy to begin with initially. This is something that a lot of carrier players won't do. They'll usually just leave their ship sitting out in the open and ultimately find themselves dead at the hands of a cheeky destroyer who comes and spots them. Now, one of the reasons I don't like to do carrier gameplay is, well, you usually end up getting a lot of the gameplay from the top-down view, which is pretty much what we're going to see here. And because it's a top-down view, and it very much requires a lot of key commands, and very much requires a lot of RTS strategy, you get a lot of quick mouse movements, and it can be a little hard to follow here. But you can see here, Lloyd's got one of his torpedo bombers down here next to a hipper, and he's kind of waiting for that hipper's anti-aircraft defensive fire to finish off. But what you didn't see there is he successfully dropped some torpedoes onto the enemy Shimakaze, earning himself a first blood and a devastating strike right off the bat. Now, Shimakaze was obviously not running with the survival expert there, but it still took 3 torpedoes to take him out. Lloyd manages to connect on that hipper with a torpedo and actually manages to shoot down one of the enemy carrier's fighters. But you can see here, his fighters are in a world of hurt because the enemy carrier has got his fighters locked down in an engagement near a friendly cruiser for the enemy carrier. Now, Lloyd did something that a lot of CV players who are very skilled will do, and that is try and torpedo and bomb destroyers, which is one of the reasons why I do concern myself with carriers and their aircraft trying to avoid getting shot at. And that's one of the reasons why I turn my AA off, specifically so that I can keep my concealment as long as possible. Now you see here, Lloyd is having a significant difficult time dealing with the fighters from the enemy carriers. He's pretty much lost most of his fighters at this point, and they're going to ultimately reset, and he's going to have to rearm them and relaunch them. That's going to give the enemy player an opportunity to send his fighters out and about and start scouting. But it also locked down that enemy carrier's fighters and allowed Lloyd to get his dive bombers out closer to other targets. So it looks like he's going to head down towards this curve first. And you can see there the enemy carrier's got his fighters coming in behind. The only question is, are they going to be fast enough? And is he even paying attention? But it doesn't look like it. So Lloyd manages to connect 9 bombs and set 3 fires on that curve first. That curve first really has got to be hating life. And of course you can see enemy carrier, his fighters are just loitering over the B cap point. The enemy team has taken an early lead with the caps. They've got 2 of them, A and B, and you can see there, even though they've lost 2 ships, they now have the points lead because of that cap advantage. This is one of the reasons why I always say, people, that cap advantage is incredibly important, especially early on in a game. So Lloyd is going to go ahead and he's going to get his aircraft back. He's going to rearm. You can see enemy carrier is bringing those bombers, those fighters in on the bombers, and he does take them out, but it doesn't appear that Lloyd got spotted. So that carrier player, maybe consider, if you are playing carriers, not to chase the enemy carrier's bombers if they're heading back. If they've already dropped their load, just let them go back, because now Lloyd doesn't have to worry about recovering them. He can just replace them and arm new ones. But more importantly, if you take them out, you can't follow those planes back to where the carrier is hiding. And you can't spot him, and you can't flag him as a priority target. So now Lloyd's got his torpedo bombers back in the air. They're already out and about, but see those fighters coming in again. So what's he done? He's taken them, and he's going to lead those bombers away. But he's going to let his fighters come in behind here and run a strafe. Now, he's not able to take out all of them, and as you can see, the enemy carrier strafes his torpedo bombers there. But he does get one set of fighters here. And now, second set coming in, does a strafe, doesn't kill all of his fighters, kills a couple of his friendly ones. But something that I want to point out that he did do was he pulled his remaining torpedo bomber squadron back over top friendly ships to at the very least help preserve them should those fighters miss their strafe and try to engage them. Anyway, now Lloyd is going to go ahead, he's going to send his damaged group back. There's no point in keeping it out, and he's going to send his torpedo bombers out for another target. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and head in for this Kurfürst. The Kurfürst is in good position. He's currently stopped, so that's going to be a really easy torpedo run here. And he's getting himself lined up for that shot. Kurfürst takes a big ol' hit from a friendly battleship there. So that means these torpedoes are really going to cause a lot of hurt, and that's exactly what they do. They leave him on with a little over 4,000 health. Started causing some damage, and then he gets finished off by a friendly battleship. Now, at this point, his team is currently in the ship's lead. They've managed to take out 2 of the enemy destroyers, 1 enemy cruiser, and that Kurfürst, while only having lost a battleship and 2 destroyers. But again, the enemy team still in the lead with 2 of the caps. And if you look at the minimap, the situation is not very good for his team because they're almost entirely clustered at the C cap point. And there's one lone Kagero all the way back over at A, who's got an Edinburgh to deal with, and that is not a destroyer I would want to be dealing with an Edinburgh in. But his team has pushed into the B cap point, and they have managed to push out the enemy destroyers. Cyclone has started now, so the visibility is going to start dropping. This is both a blessing and a curse. And it's a blessing and a curse because it means you're not going to be able to spot things like battleships as far with your bombers. Lloyd manages to take shots at the Missouri there, does connect with him, but you can see that Missouri's anti-aircraft does quite a bit. And he was only able to get 1 bomb on there and 1 fire, but the Missouri, well, 1 fire isn't necessarily a problem, so he's going to let that burn. And that's going to let the rest of his team start landing hits on that Missouri and hopefully finish him off. Hopefully. But what you want and what ends up happening might not be the same. Now, he had another set of bombers that was out there that was actually spotting the Kagero, and they still have a full load, so they're going to go in and they're going to hit the Missouri. This time they hit the Missouri right after he's, I think, put out the fire. So that fire, that 1 bomb hit, that's going to burn. And now they're going to return to the carrier and get rearmed. In the meantime, he's staggering the launching for his torpedo bombers and his dive bombers. So his dive bombers are returning back to the carrier, he's launching his torpedo bombers. So he's got a nice mix there between the 2. Enemy team manages to take out yet another ship, this time another battleship, so they're really up on points here. But Lloyd's team is pushing the B cap point and pushing hard. You'll notice, though, that Lloyd is not sticking in the back. He's not staying at the very back of the map, and he's still mobile. More importantly, he's moving towards the C cap point, so he's going to go in, get right behind his friendly ships, and as a result, his aircraft don't have to go as far to engage enemy targets. Now, he's got a fighter set here that's now engaged with 2 different fighter groups from that enemy carrier. But while they're engaged, that means his torpedo bombers are going to be able to get torpedoes out onto that Missouri without being panic scattered. And look at that nice, glorious hit. That Missouri probably pissed off at the friendly carrier for having his fighters, both sets, locked down on that 1 fighter squadron. So that actually worked out really well. Very good use of a fighter squadron, locking down the enemy's 2 fighter squadrons. Enemy Atago over here in that cap there, and you can see he's just starting to turn in now, but that's not going to save him, as that spread takes him out. And now Lloyd is on 3 kills at this point. He's got a devastating strike. He's got 129,000 damage. The enemy team down on ships, and that couple of kills there has managed to reset the points, so it's not nearly as such a lead for the enemy team, but they managed to kill something else. However, the enemy team is not gaining points right now because they don't hold a single cap. They are currently contesting at 2 caps, but the only team that has a base fully captured is Lloyd's team. And you can see there, they've all now pushed out of the C cap point, they're pushing into the B cap point, and from what we can see on the minimap, we know there are a couple of ships in the vicinity of the B cap point that need killing. Specifically, it looks like the enemy Edinburgh has actually made his way all the way around, and because he's made his way all the way around, he's left the A cap open for the Kagero to cap. But the Kagero's got his own problems with the enemy carrier, who's managed to land a couple of bomb hits on him, and that's really, really shitty for that Kagero. Not much he can do about that, aside from pop a smoke screen and just kind of wait it out. But if that enemy carrier's got torpedo bombers, he can just go in and finish him off in that smoke screen. Always something you gotta think about if you're in a destroyer. But as I was saying at the beginning, it's something that a lot of carrier players don't do. They don't go after the destroyers because they are so hard to hit. It requires a lot of skill to do it. But if you're a skilled carrier player and you do it, it's going to get you a lot of XP, and it's going to really help your team. As you can see there, enemy carrier is getting those torpedo bombers out onto that Kagero's smoke screen, and he is managing to connect. That poor Kagero. At this point, while Lloyd does have fighters available to get out there, they really aren't necessary because he's already managed to drop his load and fly away. Lloyd manages to connect several bombs on the Montana there. He's going to go in with more bombs, only one in that group, but he sets a couple of fires, and so that Montana is going to burn. Now, if that Montana is not smart, he'll put the fires out immediately, and that's going to give Lloyd the opportunity to come in with his torpedo bombers, which again, they're airborne. And so they're going to come in there. You can see he's got them split. They're nice and wide, so they can come in and they can provide effectively a cross-drop situation. The Cyclone's now in full effect here. It's only 8 kilometers, so he's got to get really close to that Montana to spot them. The Montana looks like he's got a catapult fighter up there, but that catapult fighter can only attack one at a time. So only one of those should be panic spread, and yes, only one was. The other one was fine, but look at that glorious spread of torpedoes. That's what we call a sledgehammer. He manages to connect with 5 of them out of what looks to be about 10 torpedoes. So about half there, but he caused flooding, and it's important that he causes that flooding because now that Montana is going to continue to flood. And there, from the flooding damage, Lloyd has earned his high caliber. He's already managed to earn his Confederate. Enemy team down to just 5 ships. They still have their carrier in play. They still have 2 destroyers. And the enemy team that gets the destroyer advantage, well, you know what I say, they go on usually to win. Somebody manages to take out, it looks like a ram kill. The Otago rams the Iowa. They take that out. So now it's just 2 battleships and a destroyer versus 2 destroyers and a battleship and the 2 carriers. Enemy Midway has last spotted all the way south there. And something to remember, you don't go after the enemy carrier at tier 8+ because they have that defensive fire themselves, and it lasts for like 2 minutes, so it's quite effective and quite devastating. Something you probably don't usually want to do. You can see there, Lloyd was still gaining damage right up until somebody managed to sink that Montana. It wasn't Lloyd, but he did get his Witherer from that Montana's flooding damage. Now, what would really be beneficial to his team right now is to get into the B cap point and cap that location to prevent the enemy team from continuing to gain points. But while Lloyd is going to head that direction, he is a CV. He does need to be careful. Again, there's still 2 destroyers left. There's the Kagero, and there's the Harbor Office. The Harbor Office is something that I'd be a little more concerned about than the Kagero at this point, just because it's an OP gunboat. But what Lloyd is doing is he's keeping his bombers over that Kagero, so spotted. Kagero takes a big hit, and then he actually manages to connect on that Kagero, gets his 4th kill there. At this point, he's done almost 220,000 damage. Now, he's going to go ahead and head up and start harassing that Harbor Office, because that Harbor Office is really the last threat to him. He connects on him, doesn't finish him off. The Kagero has come down and is after that Midway, but you see that Midway is turning hard. He's playing very, very smart Takes a couple of torpedoes, dodges most of them though, and now that Kagero's got himself in a close quarters battle with a Midway, and the Midway's secondaries are ridiculously OP. It's got like 7 of them per side. But while the Midway was occupied, Lloyd is able to get his aircraft in there and drop not 1 but 2 full torpedo spreads onto that Midway. The only question is, can he get the kill? Is the Kagero going to get the kill? Come on, only 1 more hit. Midway takes out the Kagero with his secondaries, and Lloyd finishes off that Midway with torpedoes. So, earning himself a Kraken Unleash here. But now, as he pushes into the B cap point, he's spotted by the Harborovsk as the Cyclone ends. So, now that Harborovsk is going to continue opening up. But you see, the Midway's got an armored flight deck and an armored hull. So, the high explosive on the Harborovsk is not actually doing a lot of damage. What he really has to worry about is, in fact, fire damage. So what he's going to do, he's going to turn his ship around here, stay in the cap, and effectively just prevent the enemy team from getting points, giving his team the maximum possibility for points lead. Keep that Kagero, or keep that Harborov spotted with his dive bombers here. Maybe connect with him. He does manage to do it. Sets him on fire there. Finishes off some of the enemy aircraft with his fighters, and fortunately, that battle is over as the Conqueror takes out the Harborovs. Good teamwork all around. 244,000 damage there, 25 aircraft shot down, which is pretty reasonable. 23 torpedo hits, 19 bomb hits in that game. Devastating Strike, Confederate, Kraken Unleashed, Witherer, First Blood, and High Caliber. A very, very good game. And even with all the nerfs that the CVs have received to their XP and credit earns, look at that. XP earned 2,600 base XP, top of the team for XP earned. The next nearest guy, the Missouri, who actually shot down more planes than him at 2,200 base XP. Overall, an incredibly good game by Lloyd there. Thank you for submitting it. I absolutely loved seeing it. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and the channel, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see on my channel, you can send it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play various games live, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.